A very good day to everyone. Welcome to Sin Secondary School's virtual open house. I'm Mr. Tan, the principal, and I'm delighted that you're able to join us today. This year, due to COVID, we could not have you join us in our regular physical open house. So we decided to venture into the future and explore the use of technology to share some information about our school with you. Talking about the future, what does the future hold? Experts around the world anticipate the future to be one where technology, in particular artificial intelligence, would be pervasive. Big data will be more and more important. There will also be global competition for talent and a shift of global power to Asia. On the work front, it would be more important to be able to engage in cross-disciplinary and collaborative work. The aspirations and expectations with respect to work would also change amongst our workforce. While there may be some uncertainty as to the exact jobs that will be available in the future economy, our students would need to develop some fundamental skills and competencies, in particular, those that are uniquely human, like empathy, in order to seize the opportunities presented in this exciting future. All this may not sound so relevant at this point in time. After all, your child would just be graduating from primary school. So the more immediate question you might be thinking about would be, how does secondary school fit in? Secondary school is an exciting phase of your child's life. It builds on the foundation laid by their primary schools and broadens and deepens their learning in both the academic and non-academic areas. Many experiences in the secondary school are designed to help your child identify his or her interests and aspirations. Different schools also put in place different programs and opportunities to support your child in achieving his or her academic and non-academic goals. So what does secondary education look like now? Well, it is definitely no longer what it used to be. In my next few slides, I hope to share with you some of the new features of secondary education that is offered across all secondary schools. First and foremost, there is a greater emphasis on holistic education. Education is not just about the academics, as we also consciously develop 21st century competencies or 21CC like critical thinking and collaboration skills and cross-cultural skills, as well as social and emotional learning in our students. These 21CC are incorporated into the subject syllabuses and are intentionally taught. Given that classroom lessons may not be sufficient in developing these 21CC in our students' learning experiences were incorporated those offered both in and out of the classroom. Consequently, there is greater recognition of student achievements beyond the academic, as we also celebrate their achievements in student-initiated or community-based activities. There is also greater flexibility and diversity in learning in today's secondary education system. Not only is there a wider range of curricula, students now offer greater diversity of subjects in school, including MOE applied subjects like drama and computing. Students can also build on their strengths and interests by offering subjects at more advanced levels through the SBB. Lastly, there is also greater porosity between streams where students may laterally transfer from one course to another if we ascertain that they are able to benefit from the transfer. The learning experiences of our students are also different. There is a reduced emphasis on rote learning and regurgitation, focusing more on conceptual understanding, the application of learning, and developing the 21CC. Students will also have fewer summative assessments like examinations. Instead, they would experience the use of more formative assessments like learning tasks in class, exit cards, and presentations. There is also a greater emphasis in developing digital literacy in our students. And as such, you would see technology being harnessed more frequently for teaching and learning. As you would have heard, every school is a good school in Singapore. With so many good schools around, how would you choose? I think first and foremost, you need to know your child. A child who is already self-directed and has a clear interest might benefit from an environment that is less scaffolded, such as the integrated program. Mainstream schools, where students sit for the national examinations after 4 years, might benefit students who need a little bit more structure and scaffolding. You may also consider the programs offered in the school. Would the enrichment programs and CCAs offered be aligned to your child's interests and aspirations? It is also useful to consider the school's culture and ethos. Does it fit in with what you have in mind when you think of the environment for your child's secondary education? Would the school have sufficient programs to challenge your child to learn, yet enable him or her to enjoy learning? And lastly, how accessible is the school from your home? School days in secondary school can end quite late with CCA and enrichment activities. The last thing we want is for your child to spend an hour or more traveling from school to home. In the last part of my presentation, I hope you will indulge me and allow me to convince you to join us in Sin Min. Perhaps let me share some snippets from our school's 75-year history with you. Back in 1945, months after the end of the Japanese occupation, there were many children who were deprived of an education due to the war. Wanting to give these children an education in order to help them improve their lives, Mr. Yap Fan Hong, our founding principal, sold 5 pigs and rented 3 bungalows along Upper Serangoon Road and started Sin Min High School. Fun fact, the first cohort of 620 students were mostly overaged and mostly male. The next milestone for the school was in 1965 when Mr. Chew Ping Ling took over as principal. Apart from the significance of the year, it also happens to be the year that Singapore gained our independence. This was a milestone because Mr. Chew served the school as principal for the next 20 years. He then continued to serve the school advisory committee for the next 32 years. Such is the commitment of our staff to serve our students, and this sense of commitment still exists today amongst many of our staff. 1984, we became a government school, and 2 years later, we became an English medium school, where the teaching and learning of all subjects is done in English. One point to note is that all this while, our school has been offering both primary and secondary education. It was only until 1987 that the primary school was separated from the secondary school and moved to Hougang. We must have missed the primary section a lot then because 3 years later, the secondary section also moved to Hougang, Avenue 8. In the late 80s, early 90s, the school was undergoing a rough patch and student enrollment fell. When alumnus Mr. Gotong Park heard about this, he volunteered to come back to Sin Min to turn the school around, and turn around the school he did. Within 6 years, Sin Min went from being amongst the bottom of the school ranking list to being one of the top 20 value-added schools. Our performance in both academic and non-academic areas was so consistently good over the next few years that we were granted the autonomous school status. This really changed the course of the school. With a different profile of students coming to us, we began to focus on developing students as leaders. Leaders of minds and leaders of hearts. Given our desire to develop confidence, empathy, and an understanding of the human spirit in our students through the arts, the school set up an ambitious project to build a creative arts complex to support our students' development in the arts. The complex was completed and officially opened in 2015 by Minister Lawrence Wong, who coincidentally is our current education minister. Our students are talented in multifaceted areas, and we want to celebrate their achievements in the different domains. As such, we set up our suite of school-based awards to recognize our students' all-round development. And these developments took place over the past 75 years, where Sin grew from being a humble village school to the institution that we are all very proud of today.